Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Cleaning the oligarch's room, the girl noticed a locket with her own photograph on the bedside table, exactly like the one she wore around her neck. That evening, she knocked on his door. The hotel was located in the heart of the city, in a historic building with arched floor-to-ceiling windows, columns adorned with stucco, impossibly high ceilings, and winding staircases. Even the exterior of the building left a lingering sense of luxury, and the interior decor had a stunning impact. The doorman greeted guests with a warm smile, holding the door open, while the hotel's atmosphere drew them in with its opulence. The hotel was famous for its luxurious rooms, gourmet cuisine, top-notch service, and exorbitant prices. This was why its clientele was so exclusive, typically successful individuals of high social standing. Securing a job here was nearly impossible. The requirements for candidates were high even for the lowest positions, with long training periods and an expectation of flawless performance. During the interview, candidates had to undergo a personalized test, demonstrate their reactions to unusual situations, and prove their ability to handle conflict effectively. When Isabella came to apply for a job, she knew nothing about the establishment. It was a mere coincidence. She had recently moved to the city, rented an apartment, and was eager to find work there under any conditions as quickly as possible. As she approached the building, Isabella felt a sense of unease, a strong feeling that she didn't belong there, that her appearance didn't fit the place. The door swung open, and the friendly doorman gestured for her to enter. A hostess in a light gray classic suit, perfectly tailored to her flawless figure and high-heeled shoes, was already walking toward her. She seemed to glide toward Isabella. As she got closer, Isabella was able to fully appreciate the professional makeup and perfect hairstyle. She looked like someone prepared for a magazine cover shoot. Isabella realized that the hostess had already assessed the situation from a distance and made the right conclusions, but upon meeting her, she displayed perfect composure and impeccable manners. "Good afternoon," the hostess said with a smile, sounding genuinely friendly. "How can I help you? Have you reserved a room, or would you like some assistance? We can go to the cloakroom, and then I'll take you to the waiting area. I'll provide you with all the necessary information." "Thank you. I'm here about a job opportunity. Could I see the HR manager?" Isabella replied in a restrained tone. The hostess breathed a sigh of relief. She was not eager to have a conversation with Isabella. She had already figured out that this wasn't their guest, and it was no easy task to shock people with the hotel's pricing. "For employment, you need to go to the next building. To the right of the hotel, there is a 2-story Gothic-style building. Once you arrive, someone will guide you further," the hostess replied politely. "Thank you," Isabella quietly said, heading toward the exit. The same doorman wished her a good day with his ever-present smile. As she approached the building the hostess had described, Isabella froze for a moment. She felt she didn't belong in this perfect place, as though it was beyond her level. Then she remembered the upcoming bills, the fact that she was all alone in this city and had no one to rely on. Isabella decided to try her luck. She boldly opened the door and walked up to the reception desk. "Good afternoon. I have an interview scheduled for 12 o'clock. The receptionist checked the list, confirmed her name, and made a call to someone. "Please have a seat," she said, gesturing to a leather couch. "Someone will be with you shortly. Would you like tea or coffee?" "No, thank you," Isabella replied. She was thinking about how this kind of atmosphere would be perfect for her to work in. Everyone around was courteous, well-mannered, and followed proper conduct. It seemed to her that this was the kind of society worth aspiring to. A minute later, a woman in leather pants, high boots, and an oversized sweater, with a white shirt collar sticking out from under it, came down the stairs. The atmosphere in this building was more relaxed. "Good afternoon, Isabella. Please follow me," the woman said with a sincere smile. Despite the manager's casual style, Isabella felt awkward about her own appearance. Since she hadn't fully understood where she was going, she had chosen an average outfit, classic blue jeans, sturdy-heeled boots, and a completely plain sweater. "I suggest leaving your coat in the cloakroom," the woman said, pointing the way. There was no turning back, so Isabella had to give up her coat. They entered a cozy office, which felt more like a room. Isabella was invited to sit on a sofa with a coffee table in front of it. A laptop was brought, files were shown, and she was asked to take a test. The questions were standard. For someone with education in this field, they were not difficult. The problem was that Isabella had received her degree more than 10 years ago, so some questions proved to be tricky. Trying to recall things from the farthest corners of her memory, Isabella clicked the Finish Test button. "I'm done," she said. "Yes, I see," the woman replied. 98%. Excellent result. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time. You're great. I'll make sure to note that in your profile. She approached the laptop and started a video where a man in an official suit, having lost his suitcase, accused the staff of theft, claiming that while he was in the restaurant, the workers had sneaked into his room and stolen his things. What would your reaction be in this situation? The woman asked after the video ended. I would probably apologize, ask for some time to resolve the issue. While waiting, I'd offer him drinks, maybe show him the billiard room. I saw it by the entrance. If he refuses, I'd suggest he wait in the restaurant, of course, covering the bill. During this time, we would try to locate his suitcase. Since the man in the video is drunk and a hotel guest, I don't think it would be an issue. Unless it was actually stolen. Isabella replied. Oh no. The girl laughed. This man left it in the cloakroom for safekeeping and completely forgot about it. Well, I like it. You're handling the situation correctly. Right now, we only have one vacancy available, a maid position. Isabella lowered her eyes. Well, the ad didn't specify the position clearly, but she hadn't expected to end up working as a cleaning lady. Were you applying for a different position? The girl asked, and without waiting for an answer, continued, I understand, with your education, you expected a different role. You probably deserve it, you know a lot, and you did well on the test. But unfortunately, even if there are available positions, and positions here rarely become available, we couldn't hire you for the administrator role. We have a policy, the higher the position, the more knowledge is required. So, before moving up, you need to learn the duties of lower-level positions or have some unique experience. Therefore, I suggest you don't refuse the position outright, but think it over. After all, the pay is more than decent. The amount mentioned in the ad is your net salary. And you should consider that we don't have many guests. We focus on quality, not quantity. Not everyone can afford a room at this price, so we attract high-profile individuals, and there aren't many of them. After thinking for a moment, Isabella said a firm yes. Senor Rodriguez. Senor Rodriguez, it's time. Sorry to bother you. I understand you wanted to rest, but it's getting late, and we could miss the flight. Besides, the car is already outside. Gabriel snapped out of his thoughts. He hated himself for this weakness, but couldn't help it. Recently, memories of the past had been building up like a snowball. They were overtaking him, consuming all his free time, and interfering with his sleep. He sighed heavily, suddenly stood up from the table, grabbed his coat, and left. Sure enough, the car was parked at the entrance. Gabriel smirked, a classic, a black Mercedes with white leather seats. He opened the driver's door and said, Good evening. Get out of the car, I'll drive myself. Allow me, Senor Rodriguez. Perhaps it's better not to do this? It's not easy to get to the airport on time at this hour. If we're late, we'll ruin the whole trip. You understand, it will be difficult to explain our delay to the partners. Andres, I hired you to check contracts, not give advice. Let's stick to our roles. Are you familiar with the word subordination? If not, Google it. Yes, of course, the employee replied. The young man driving the car had no idea what to do. According to the rules, he was supposed to drive, but refusing the boss was almost the same as losing his job. As if reading his thoughts, Gabriel added, You understand, I'm the boss, and I make the rules. Today, the rule is this, you give up your role. I'll say it again. Tonight, you're free, your work is done, Gabriel said. The young man got out of the car, let Gabriel take the wheel, and shut the door behind him. Andres silently sat in the back seat. The city's streetlights blurred and merged into one endless streak. The cars they overtook were impossible to distinguish, the speed exceeded any reasonable limits. Andres squinted and realized he was starting to slide off his seat in fear. The scene was terrifying, the whistling of passing cars, endless winding through the streets, and the ominous laughter of Gabriel Rodriguez. A sudden break and silence. Andres, you can open your eyes now, Gabriel said, laughing. Ah, that was a nice ride. I take it you didn't enjoy the trip? Next time, you can take a taxi and follow us. But today, sorry, I didn't think about that. Gabriel got out of the car, stretched, and felt relief. The adrenaline rush always helps. I need to remember that old experience more often, he thought. Since childhood, Gabriel had been passionate about cars, like all boys at that age. His true interest began during his teenage years when he started racing. The young driver showed huge promise. He won nearly all the competitions, finishing in the top places. This gave him wings and added prestige, but Gabriel felt something deeper for the sport. When he was behind the wheel, the world seemed to stop. He focused solely on the sensations, merging with the car completely. He felt, heard, and controlled every breath of the vehicle. He was destined for a great future in this field. There were almost no rivals. Everything was decided by a tragic coincidence, as it often is: wet asphalt, drizzling rain, and someone else's mistake. Gabriel would never forget those fractions of a second that split his life into before and after, the screech of brakes, the out-of-control car speeding toward him in the turn, how his car spun, and how he first realized the complete loss of control. And then he lost control over his body, a compression fracture of the spine, a sobbing mother who stayed at his bedside for days, and the complete uncertainty of what lay ahead. Gabriel felt as though his life had collapsed in 1 minute, and he didn't know what would have happened if it hadn't been for his mother's perseverance. She was the one who nursed him back to health despite the lack of money in the family. She managed to negotiate quotas, treatment, and rehabilitation. She was the one who made Gabriel continue his studies during that difficult period, insisting that he had a long and happy life ahead of him and needed to build it today. She was right about everything, except happiness. Gabriel still hadn't achieved that. Now we're going to get a bunch of fines. It's scary to even imagine. I think with this many, I've never encountered anything like it. Andres once again pulled him out of his thoughts. Well, you'll learn to deal with a lot of information, Gabriel replied. The plane gradually filled with people, and everyone around was bustling. Some were arguing, others were laughing, the usual course of life. With all due respect, Senor Rodriguez, why didn't we take business class tickets? Why are we flying among ordinary people? And what? You're not ordinary. Strange, you look just like everyone else. Andres squirmed in his seat, nervously swallowing, constantly adjusting his tie. It became obvious that he was afraid of flying. Oh my God, who did I hire? Gabriel thought and closed his eyes. He sank back into his thoughts. Whatever he thought about, he always ended up at Isabella. Now, the situation needed to be resolved. But this was a business trip, damn it. He remembered that evening again. There had been a massive accident in the city. The lights went out almost everywhere, and the streetlights weren't working. Gabriel was sitting in the back seat. The driver was taking him home. He pulled out his planner, looked it over, and began telling the driver his plans for the next day when suddenly a figure appeared in the road. Again, the screech of brakes, and once again, the situation got out of control. Gabriel was the first to jump out of the car. He ran to the hood. A woman was lying on the ground. Call an ambulance. Call an ambulance right now. He shouted at the driver, but the driver stood frozen, not moving. Gabriel started dialing the number himself, but then saw the woman move. It's fine. No need for doctors. A voice came from under the car. Gabriel helped the woman out, picked her up, and placed her in the car. There, he carefully examined her, externally, everything seemed fine. How could you be so careless? This could have ended much worse. Well, we didn't see you. It's pretty dark around here. But how did you not notice us? The headlights are visible from far away. I saw you, I just misjudged it. I thought I'd make it. I'm sorry. She looked up at him with sky-blue eyes, radiating kindness and resignation. Gabriel felt like he was sinking. Well, you certainly don't need to apologize, but it was us who hit you. Sit for a minute, I'll be right back. He then walked over to the frozen and confused driver. You're fired. Don't come back to work, HR will call you. I understand, the driver replied. No, you don't understand anything. You're fired not because of the accident, no one can prevent these things. But because you didn't call an ambulance. You were so scared of yourself, scared that you'd be blamed for the accident, that you didn't want to help a person. That's the reason you're fired. Remember that. Hand over the keys, said Gabriel, extending his hand. After that, he got into the car and left. The driver stood there, staring after them. The plane was coming in for a landing, and Gabriel snapped out of his thoughts. See, we survived. You're lucky, Gabriel said jokingly to Andres. After a flight like that, you're probably going to book us into a hostel, Andres said. I would have done that, but unfortunately, the hostels in this city are in terrible shape, so we're going to a luxury hotel. You'll definitely appreciate it. The doorman at the entrance took their luggage. The manager greeted them warmly and led them to their pre-booked rooms. Can I be free now? For today, yes, Gabriel replied. Isabella arrived at work on time. The manager gave her a tour of the hotel, explained all the nuances, and treated her to a delicious breakfast. She met the staff and began her duties. Breakfast is about to start, said Veronica, the hotel administrator. We need to clean room 10 and 11. The guests checked in last night and planned to leave in 3 days, so make sure you do everything by the standards. Just, Isabella, do everything quickly and carefully. The guest is very wealthy, you can't even imagine how rich he is. Veronica said conspiratorially. An hour later, Isabella knocked on the door. After confirming that no one was inside, she entered quietly. While cleaning the oligarch's room, she noticed a locket with her own photo on the bedside table. It was the same locket she wore around her neck. Isabella smiled, and that evening, she knocked on his door. No need. Thank you. She heard the familiar voice. Then, with a smile, she tapped a rhythm that mimicked a melody. There was a pause. The door remained closed. There was complete silence behind it. Isabella leaned her forehead against the door and knocked again. She knew, she felt, that she was knocking directly on his heart. It was their sign. The lock clicked, but the door didn't open. Isabella took a deep breath and entered. Gabriel was silently standing by the window, with his back to her. Hi, Isabella whispered. May I come in? Haven't you already come in? He asked calmly. I came in, but without your permission. And it's important for me that you let me in, just like you let me into your life, she said, walking closer. As I recall, it didn't end well. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes, but the key is to learn from them and draw conclusions. I've already made mine, Gabriel said, calmly but coldly. Do you think I was a mistake in your life? Or maybe the situation just seemed wrong? She asked. I won't ask how you knew I was here. But why did you come, Isabella? He turned toward her. You don't have to ask, I'll answer. On the other hand, I might not answer at all. You see my form, that's the answer. She lowered her eyes. Today, I cleaned your room. On the dresser, you left a locket. Then I thought, maybe this was all a monstrous mistake. Maybe not everything is lost. She pulled out the same locket from under her clothes. I still wear it every evening, and every evening, I tell you good night. Gabriel suddenly turned away toward the window. It felt as though her words had struck him like a knife straight to the heart, a direct hit. He needed to hide his emotions, first and foremost from himself, as he had fought so long and almost succeeded. As a service industry worker, you had no right to look through my things. As an exception, I will forget about this situation. But now, excuse me, I must ask you to leave. I need to work. For Isabella, it was a slap in the face. She immediately flushed and, lowering her eyes to the floor, left silently. It's okay. This is my game, and I'll win it, Isabella thought. When the door closed, Gabriel leaned against the windowsill in frustration. This was exactly what he had feared. The wound seemed to have healed, but only until you faced your own pain head-on. What a terrible twist of fate. Why had he left that locket there? He paced the room, trying to pull himself together and repeating to himself that he had to resist. The next morning, Gabriel woke up completely drained. Doubts, memories, and a total lack of understanding of how to move forward had tortured him all night. He was once again losing control of the situation. Something inside him told him that everything going on was tainted with insincerity, but his heart wanted to believe the opposite. Struggling with his emotions, Gabriel decided that he would communicate with Isabella strictly formally and try to avoid any encounters. He just had to last for 3 days. A knock at the door. Andres stood in the doorway, looking completely bewildered. Senor Rodriguez, what's going on? Our meeting is in half an hour, and I was told you haven't had breakfast yet. It's probably true since you're still in your robe. I'll be ready in 30 minutes. Half an hour for the drive is more than enough. Wait for me in the restaurant and order coffee for me in 20 minutes, Gabriel said flatly. Andres nodded and left obediently. He started getting anxious about the negotiations. Gabriel was clearly not in the right state of mind. Andres couldn't understand why he was like this, since yesterday he had arrived in an optimistic mood. For the first time in a long while, Andres had seen something like a smile on his boss's face. They had gone to bed early, but something must have happened during the night. The young man wisely noted that Gabriel now had to be handled with care. At work, the boss was known for his fairness and strictness. He always helped his employees, but never forgave repeated mistakes, saying that it was no longer a mistake. Andres knew that a repeated mistake meant a sentence, and he valued his position. 25 minutes later, Gabriel was descending the spiral staircase, looking impeccably put together, well-groomed, shaved, and showing no signs of fatigue. Isabella was heading upstairs, and their meeting was inevitable. "Good afternoon," she said with a smile, looking him in the eye. "I'm glad to see you, even if just for a moment." "Good afternoon. I think we should maintain some subordination. After all, you're at work, aren't you?" Gabriel replied with complete indifference. Isabella lowered her eyes, but, after a second, looked up again. Her eyes were filled with tears, warmth, tenderness, and love. She reached out and touched his cheek. "I'm sorry, Senor Rodriguez, I didn't think, I couldn't hold back. I can't even promise it won't happen again. I will look for encounters, even if they're fleeting." Gabriel watched her. He tried to control his emotions, but his hand involuntarily reached out and gently wiped away a tear from her cheek. Struggling to regain composure, he continued on his way, leaving Isabella behind. The girl smiled. The taxi drove through the city. Gabriel looked out the window, thinking that it would have been better to send his assistant to the less important negotiations. He didn't even understand why he had suddenly insisted on handling this project himself. The young man took out his phone and quickly dialed the security services number. "David, I'll send you the data now. Provide a full report. I need information, the most detailed information, from birth to today." Andres listened attentively, trying to keep the situation under control. For the rest of the ride, Gabriel looked out the window, completely immersed in his thoughts. Andres sensed something was off. Deep inside, he wanted to help his boss. The negotiations went brilliantly, all the points were agreed upon, and all Gabriel's demands were met. Only the contract signing remained. The event was scheduled for the next day. Andres admired Gabriel, amazed at his composure, and tried to learn his ability to anticipate situations. When the young men returned to the hotel, they went straight to the restaurant to have dinner. Gabriel didn't want to return to his room. He had a premonition that Isabella would come back. After stepping out of the shower, he felt her presence. After passing a couple of rooms, he calmly looked at Isabella, who was sitting in a chair. "See, I'm not in shape," Isabella said, standing up from the chair. "Now, we can disregard the subordination." She was wearing a small black dress with bare shoulders, her hair in an elegant updo with a few stray curls falling over her long neck, beckoning him. The casual look didn't stop you from taking advantage of your position, didn't it? How did you get into the room? "I think this action can be dismissed as a little prank," Isabella replied with a smile. "I think this action is more like a violation of the law, trespassing with the abuse of power. It's also an invasion of my personal space, which is also unacceptable. Isabella, stop seeking encounters. Your games are doomed to fail. Gabriel, I saw you came for a short time. We only have 3 days. These could be 3 happy days for me, and I don't expect more. I won't ask you to remember the past, that would be unfair of me. I never forgot you. Just let me see you, because who knows if I'll ever have another chance." "I don't see the point in our meetings," Gabriel said, forcing the words out. "We don't have a chance. Let's throw away all that obligatory nonsense, the templates, the rules. Let's just be with each other for these 3 days." She approached Gabriel so close that he could feel her breath. "We can't be together anymore. This fleeting connection will only bring suffering and disappointment. Everything connected to you can't disappoint me. Memories of you won't cause me pain," Isabella said, resting her forehead against his chest. "I missed you so much. I needed your scent. Sometimes I could smell it at night," she whispered. Gabriel completely lost his mind. This woman drove him crazy. Resistance was useless, and he gave in. "I can't believe my luck. You know, when you spoke so dryly on the stairs, I was ready to give up. Actually, I promised myself I'd give up, but just a few hours later, I changed my mind." "I think it's good that you showed persistence," Gabriel responded warmly. "What are your plans for tomorrow?" Isabella asked. "Tomorrow we sign the contract. It's the final stage of the deal." "Wow. What kind of contract is this in this godforsaken town?" "We'll build a shopping complex. It won't be without complications, but we'll make it through." "What kind of complications can there be here?" "There's no entertainment in this town at all. People have to travel to nearby cities for shopping. Children have nothing to do. Could there really be problems with building an entertainment complex? I think the residents will only support this idea." "The residents, maybe, but we had to fight with the authorities. They had their own plans for this. But we have our people everywhere. Fortunately, my former classmate works in the town hall, where we'd be building a luxury sauna instead of an entertainment complex." "Wow, you're lucky." As the night drew closer to morning, when Gabriel was asleep, Isabella left the room. Andres, returning from a night out, tried to unlock the door and watched her carefully. When she disappeared from view, he calmly opened the door to the room and walked to the window. A luxury car pulled up to the hotel. Isabella looked around and got into the passenger seat. Gabriel woke up but didn't want to open his eyes just yet. He recalled the previous evening, savoring it, replaying every detail. His memories took him back to that dark rainy day when his driver had hit Isabella. They had driven away from the scene, leaving the driver in the middle of the road. Looking in the rearview mirror, Gabriel saw Isabella glancing at the young man standing in the middle of the road. "I feel sorry for him," she said. "This man almost killed you." Gabriel replied, surprised. "And you feel sorry for him?" "Yes. He's not to blame. First of all, it was dark outside, and I was wearing a black coat. He just didn't see me. Secondly, you were probably in a hurry, so he was speeding. Gabriel thought that the girl was speaking with a hint of reproach. First of all, if we were speeding, you wouldn't have just been frightened, most likely, and second of all, the young man was fired not because of the accident. Even I probably wouldn't have seen you in such a situation, and the outcome would have been the same. He was fired because of poor character, because he didn't want to help someone in need, because he put his own interests above others. But these are personal qualities, they have nothing to do with the job, the girl pointed out. I hadn't thought about that, but I still disagree. If he makes a mistake at work, he will do the same thing, clearing himself with no shame, using those who are around him. You can't build quality work like that. And besides, what happened today is his responsibility. He should have handled the situation with dignity. Well, maybe. But I still feel sorry for him. For the rest of the ride, Gabriel watched Isabella through the rearview mirror. She stared silently out the window. She was beautiful, sharp features, huge eyes. Where are we going? She suddenly asked, as if waking up. You ruined your clothes. This is my fault. We're going to fix the mistake. You don't think this is my last outfit, do you? She replied seriously. And besides, I can buy myself new tights and shoes. I didn't mean to offend you, but I just wanted to make up for my mistake. And after such stress, I thought a little recovery was in order. I wanted to invite you to a restaurant, Gabriel replied with a smile. And before we go to the venue, it's better to change. Well, if it's like that, but I'll pay you back for the clothes. I don't need anyone else's. Gabriel smiled, looking at the stubborn girl. He was already charmed. They arrived at the store and began choosing clothes. It was lighthearted and casual, with the young people joking and laughing. Isabella chose a little black dress with bare shoulders, and the coat had to be replaced with a long cream-colored one. When they reached the cashier and the saleswoman told them the price of the purchase, Isabella gasped. No. I'm sorry, we won't take this. I'm going to hang everything back. I apologize again, Isabella said and headed for the fitting rooms. Gabriel quietly swiped his card, smiled at the saleswoman, and followed the girl. Isabella, unfortunately, the salespeople won't be able to return the purchased goods to the store, so I don't see the point in changing. Let's stick to the original plan. I can't accept such an expensive gift, but I also can't give you the money for the clothes. This puts me in an awkward position. Let's just accept the situation as a done deal. Imagine you're not in control of it. Let me set the rules today, Gabriel said, pulling the girl close by the waist and leading her out of the store. The restaurant completely delighted Isabella. She evaluated each dish with particular interest. Everything was new to her, and she was genuinely happy, savoring the moment. In this way, she taught Gabriel to see the familiar things in a new light. I thought I'd go crazy with all this variety of deliciousness. Honestly, this is the most satisfying and delicious evening of my life. How about a ride through the city at night? Then I'll really lose my mind. With pleasure. I'll lose my mind with you, too. She looked at him carefully, trying to gauge if she had understood him correctly, then smiled and lowered her eyes. They drove around and walked until dawn, talking, being silent, admiring nature and each other. Gabriel could never forget that night, the feeling of something big beginning to grow. I could walk forever, but I'm already dying to sleep, the charming Isabella said with a smile. Gabriel took her home and stood for a long time under her window, watching as the lights went on and off. Isabella was simple, lively, sincere, and very intelligent. In Gabriel's circle, there were no women like her. His circle seemed to be born with different values, priorities, and principles. The women around him were predators, they were on the hunt, and Gabriel was their prized catch, young, rich, and promising. The women attacked him, but no one ever truly interested him. Of course, he courted them, spent time with them, and even enjoyed it, but there was nothing real in those interactions. Before meeting Isabella, he had never been concerned about this. Gabriel was building his career, finding his place in the city, and enjoying life. He didn't have time to think about the future, and his fast-developing, short-lived relationships suited him just fine. But that evening, everything changed. It wasn't hard to figure out where Isabella lived. When they arrived, no windows in the building were lit, so he clearly saw where the girl had entered. The next morning, he ordered a huge bouquet of flowers to be delivered to her address. Soon after, he received a message, "Thank you, but I prefer daisies. Maybe we can have dinner tonight?" "I can't tonight. I wanted to thank you for last evening. It was magical. I had a great time too. Can we do it again tomorrow?" "Maybe. Then I'll start looking for daisies." That's how their romance began. It completely consumed Gabriel. He had never experienced anything like it before, nor would he again. The young people met every day, and every free minute they spent texting each other. For the first time in his life, Gabriel was himself. Before this, only his mother had truly known him. 2 months later, Gabriel realized that Isabella had to be completely his and that he couldn't be apart from her for a second. "Isabella, I've been thinking, maybe you should move in with me." "Why?" the girl asked, as if testing him. "I know we've only known each other for a short time, but still, I understand and feel that I can't live without you. I want you to be a part of my life." "I feel the same way," she smiled. "But it's important for me to understand who I am to you, what my status is. Do I have any rights to you?" "I'm yours completely," Gabriel replied. "And I guess that started the moment I pulled you from under the car. And I'm yours. Just know this, I'm all yours. Does this mean yes?" "I hope so, but I'll answer with another proposal," the girl smiled mischievously. "You can't doubt it," Gabriel said. From that evening on, they never parted again, happily managing their daily lives, making plans for the future, and debating how many children they would have. "I'd like to get a job," Isabella said one evening. "Are you crazy? Why do you need that? Maybe one careerist is enough for our family?" Isabella walked up to Gabriel and gently hugged him. "I'm not planning on building a career. I just want to be in the middle of things, to see people around. And besides, I have an education, and I need to use it at least a little. If everything goes according to plan and the kids start coming one by one, I won't have time to work. I don't understand your decision, but I'm ready to accept it. I hope I'm the kind of employer you're looking for. From this side, I don't know you yet. Let's get to know each other. Okay, I'll look into suitable vacancies in a few days. Just, Gabriel, please make it an ordinary position. I'm not interested in leadership roles. Everyone will go crazy enough already. And if I go into management, they'll devour me. I can't agree with you on that. You need to be ready from the start. Even if you become a cleaner, people will still talk about you and judge you. Unfortunately, because we're together, it's going to be tough for you. But you should know, I'm always here for you. You can and should tell me everything. I'll solve any problem for you. Okay, but for now, I'll try to figure things out on my own." Gabriel kissed the back of her head and thought that this naive, open-hearted girl would have a hard time, but he knew he'd be there for her. 2 weeks later, Isabella started her job as an administrator at a small shopping complex. A week later, she came to Gabriel for a conversation. "You know, part of the profit is leaking right under your nose? I can't prove it, of course, since I don't have access to the documents, but I can clearly see that something's wrong." "What do you mean?" "I tried to send you to the calmest and most trusted place. You should never trust anyone or anything too much. I won't say for sure, but maybe because the management of the complex feels completely secure, strange things are happening behind your back, to put it mildly," Isabella said firmly and confidently. Gabriel was taken aback. He had never seen this side of her. "What do you mean?" "We check the accounts regularly, reconcile them. On the contrary, we thought this was one of the most reliable complexes." "That's true, they do pass reconciliation successfully, but the problem is the amounts in their contracts. In reality, the complex operates at different rates. But for now, this is just speculation. Gabriel thought for a moment. He had indeed started to lose his grip, gotten relaxed, and was going with the flow. Maybe it was time to dig deeper, so to speak, a preventive check. I hear you. Keep an eye on things for now, we'll prepare an audit, he said. Gabriel, I don't know how to say this, but if you want an effective audit, and not just the appearance of busy work, the upcoming event must be kept secret. Otherwise, the information will spread too quickly, and by the time of the audit, everyone will be prepared. I'm sure there's someone in your team who knows everything that's going on. Interesting, that hadn't occurred to me. All right, I'll think about it, he said thoughtfully. I'd like to join the audit team. I'd definitely be useful there. We'll think about it. You've surprised me, you know, so fragile, sensitive, and gentle, and then such a strong character. I can't stand injustice. I hate it when people take advantage of kindness. The next day, Isabella arrived at her workplace. The manager was already waiting for her. Senora Santana, please come to my office. Sighing, the girl followed her boss. From the tone of her voice, she understood that nothing good would come from this conversation. I've heard rumors that you're asking tenants too many questions and providing some with documents. Well, too many questions is relative. For some, it's too many. For others, it's just enough. The documentation I provided isn't classified. Moreover, every tenant has the right to review it, Isabella said calmly and confidently. She looked the manager straight in the eyes. I'm, of course, aware of who you are and how you got here, but believe me, your position doesn't guarantee you safety at the workplace, of course. My personal life is none of your concern. It has no relevance to work. So, judge me by my professional qualities. If I made a mistake, you can apply sanctions. I'm all for justice, Isabella replied. Thank you for your permission. Naturally, such actions won't go unnoticed. Honestly, if I were you, I'd resign immediately. You must understand that in the end, we'll come to this, regardless of who you live with. And no matter how much you say that your personal life doesn't affect your work, everyone knows why you're here. You have no accomplishments, but you have a warm spot. You weren't expected here, and no one invited you. I didn't come here as a guest, in case you've forgotten. Let me remind you, we're at work, and here people aren't invited, they're hired. And also, I'd like to point out, you're not the owner of this establishment, you're just fulfilling your duties. Isabella spoke quietly, but every word was filled with threat. Can I go now? I have a lot of work to do. Yes, of course, get to work, but know this, I'm watching you, and not just me. Isabella left the office, trembling. She gathered herself and walked to her desk. It felt like everyone was watching her with malicious glee. What a crazy woman, huh? Her assistant stormed into the office. Senora Santana, don't pay attention to them, they're just a pack of jackals. What are you talking about, Gloria? Isabella asked, though she already had a pretty good idea. Everyone's talking about it today. I think no one's been working today. They're all just discussing this morning's situation. Isabella didn't want to lower herself to gossip level. She'd gladly have let everything slide, but she had to control the situation. Wow. I'm really becoming a star. And what are they saying? They're saying they're preparing an order for your dismissal, Gloria said, looking down. But everyone's talking about how useless it is. Senor Rodriguez won't let them fire you. I see. Thanks for the information. We'll see who gets the last word, Isabella replied calmly. I'm crossing my fingers for you. Honestly, I think you should use all the leverage you have. It would be outrageous if they fired you, and she gets away with it. What business? Do you know something? Oh, you don't even know half of it. I used to work in accounting, but I couldn't stand the chaos, so I transferred here. Interesting. Maybe we'll fight this out. If anything, you can count on me, the girl said confidently. Thanks. Let everyone think I'm planning to resign. Got it. In 10 minutes, everyone will be sure of it, she said with a smile. Isabella smiled and nodded in agreement. When Gloria left, she called Gabriel. We need to urgently assemble the audit commission. The situation is getting out of hand. 2 people are already on the team. 2? But you said we shouldn't trust anyone? Yes, I did. But something tells me that this girl, my assistant, could actually be useful to us. Besides, she has personal scores to settle with the manager, and that's a plus. Isabella, I never cease to be amazed by how you've thought everything through. You look like an innocent child. I hope this won't change the way you feel about me? She asked. Oh no. Nothing can change my feelings for you, Gabriel answered warmly. Then get ready, before closing, the audit commission is going to pay a visit. Our company has introduced a security division, and the audit will be conducted under their supervision. Isabella practically stayed in her office. After lunch, she approached the manager and told her that she would be submitting her resignation the next day. This lulled the woman's vigilance. Isabella returned to her office and calmly worked, waiting for the evening. By the end of the workday, the security service entered the office premises. The doors were locked from the inside. The inspection began. The staff was genuinely frightened. Everyone was told to stay in their places, prepare their documents, and every action was filmed by cameras. Isabella and Gloria, as part of the audit protocol, led the process, step by step uncovering contracts and identifying violations, which turned out to be numerous. When the audit reached the manager's office, Isabella, holding back her emotions, entered the office with the commission. She sat on the guest sofa, raised her head proudly, and looked directly into the manager's eyes. You're a rat. I said that the moment you stepped into this building. Strange, I thought the rat here was you, and that you're the one who's turned this place into a mess, also stealing because people trusted you. A person doesn't appreciate kindness. So, here you go, you get evil in return. Let me tell you a secret, from here, you'll leave, at best, fired for misconduct, at worst, and I want to emphasize, this is the option I'll insist on, they'll file a case against you. Can you imagine how you'll live after that? The woman sat across from her, glaring at her with loathing in her eyes, showing no remorse. The active phase of the audit ended closer to the night. As a result, most of the staff was fired for cause, some resigned voluntarily. The next morning, the shopping complex continued to operate as usual but with an updated staff. The company was hiring new employees. Isabella took the position of manager and conducted personal interviews with each selected employee. Gloria refused to return to accounting and continued her path in administration. It was she who took Isabella's place and actively began looking for her assistant. I can't believe this place is going to start following the rules. Why didn't you fight back? Isabella asked. How could I not? I tried, I said everything, made it clear I knew what was going on. I even planned to write a letter to upper management with attached files, of course. My initiative was intercepted, and I was kicked out of accounting. They were too afraid to fire me outright, so they thought if they did this, I'd stop complaining. Well, I guess they were right, it worked, Isabella concluded. No, it was just hard to adjust to the new position. At first, I couldn't handle it, but then you came, and by your example, you showed me how to work. Later, I was planning to approach Senor Rodriguez directly, he's the only person who would listen to me. But it's difficult. Senora Santana, you can't get to him, the secretary doesn't schedule meetings with regular employees, saying we should deal with things through third parties and not bother someone of his level with our silly problems. So, I decided to just wait for him by the door. But I got lucky, you came and solved everything. I wouldn't have been able to work things out as effectively as you did. You're great. Just stay the same, Isabella sincerely said. It was a tough day. The company had opened a number of job vacancies with a decent salary, excellent working conditions, and a flexible schedule. There was no shortage of applicants. Interviews took place from morning until evening in 2 stages, first in HR, then the approved candidates had a personal interview with the manager. However, when Isabella entered the house, she collapsed on the couch. It seemed like all her strength had drained away. Gabriel was already home. He immediately understood that she was exhausted both physically and emotionally. "Let's order a nice dinner," he said, sitting beside her on the couch. "Let's sit by the TV, have dinner with some funny comedy. We won't talk about work, just laugh and go to sleep. I really like your idea. It's so perfect that I don't even want to add anything to it. Let's start putting this plan into action. I'm absolutely starving." Gabriel laughed and grabbed his phone. "While I'm ordering, you should have time to take a shower. And I'll pick out the movie." Smiling, Isabella went to the bathroom. She felt supported and cared for. When she came out of the shower, the pillows were already arranged, the blanket ready, and her favorite sushi and pizza were on the table. It was a cozy evening at home, filled with care. This was the kind of atmosphere Isabella had dreamed of, the kind of family life Gabriel had imagined. The young people felt secure and comfortable. This evening helped them recover. 3 weeks later, the staff was fully recruited. The complex operated as before, but the quality of work had changed. This was reflected in the overall atmosphere of the establishment. It felt like the complex was getting a second wind. "Gabriel, you need to be closer to the people. Look, my assistant, remember Gloria? She saw all of this coming, but she had no one to report it to. Your secretary refused to schedule her a meeting. Maybe it's worth thinking about this issue." "Maybe, we'll think about it," he answered, hugging Isabella. And so, the tradition of open day on Thursdays was born. On this day, any employee could approach the upper management with any issue by appointment. People signed up constantly, which helped resolve many issues before they became problems. The security service was also not reduced. In fact, it gained more authority. "Isabella, there's no more delaying. It's time for you to meet my mom," Gabriel said one evening. "You have to understand, these are the 2 most important women in my life. No matter how much you try to avoid it, you'll still have to meet her. What are you afraid of? I understand, and I know how important she is to you. I'm just really afraid she won't like me. She probably thinks her son deserves a better match. Actually, if that's the case, I even understand her. You're crazy." "It's because you don't know my mom," Gabriel laughed out loud. "She's a person who doesn't care about status or wealth. My mom always says, a person comes first. So forget all that nonsense. The day after tomorrow, we're going to dinner." For the next 2 days, Isabella couldn't stop thinking about the upcoming meeting. She knew that the most significant influence Gabriel could face came from his mother. Deep down, she felt that this would always be the case. How would she react to such a life companion for Gabriel? Isabella came from a humble working-class family, living on the edge of poverty in a remote village. After losing her parents, she moved to the city, miraculously enrolled in university on a budget, and lived in a dorm while working as a waitress. After graduation, she had to rent a room in a communal apartment. She couldn't afford more. Without work experience, she couldn't get a good job. Then came the accident. Isabella was a person with no roots or family who couldn't settle her life on her own but had managed to attach herself to Gabriel using his resources. She was afraid that this would unsettle Gabriel's mother. On the appointed day, Isabella couldn't sit still. She kept changing outfits, even rehearsing the meeting in front of the mirror. She wrote out lines on paper and then rewrote them. Panic started rising inside her. "Isabella, calm down. My mom isn't a monster. She doesn't eat people. She's a friendly, open person. You just need to be yourself. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. You'll definitely like my mom. In fact, sincerity will open her heart. That's the most important thing. I understand everything. Since last night, I've been trying to pull myself together, but I can't help it. I even had nightmares last night." Isabella was on edge. Do you think she'll like this outfit? I think my mom doesn't care what outfit you wear. What matters to her is what's inside, Gabriel answered and hugged his companion. And inside, you're kind and brave. I envy you, Isabella said and continued getting ready. After hours of changing outfits and rehearsing, the preparations were finally done. Taking the gifts they had prepared earlier, the couple headed to the car. They arrived at an elegant, understated country house where everything exuded taste and modest luxury. A lovely woman with a radiant smile came to greet them. Watch out, don't mix this up. This isn't my mom, it's her assistant, Gabriel whispered. Good thing you said that. They look so alike, Isabella whispered back. That's why I told you, everyone confuses them. They're also similar in character. Anyway, Dolores is her twin. I guess that's why they've been living together for years, like sisters, Gabriel laughed. Sometimes I think they can't be separated. They just wouldn't be able to live without each other. Dolores rushed up to them and embraced Gabriel warmly. Then she gave Isabella a big hug as well. Isabella's heart started to melt, so much kindness and warmth, she hadn't seen anything like it in a long time. Finally, we were starting to lose hope, we thought we'd never see you. We even said, we'll meet Isabella at the grandchildren's christening. We've been inviting you, and you never came. A little more, and we would have come ourselves to meet you, Dolores said with a smile. Come on in. Where's Mom? Gabriel asked. She's making the cake. Can you imagine? She kicked me out of the kitchen. She said she didn't trust me. The house was very cozy. Normally, these kinds of houses lack warmth, but this one was filled with homely comfort, high ceilings adorned with moldings, soft sofas you could sink into, fluffy rugs on the floor, and a neat fireplace with crackling firewood. Gabriel, Isabella, we've been waiting for you so much. Come in, my dears, Mom came out of the room in an apron. Isabella handed her the bouquet of flowers, and Dolores gave her a box of chocolates. Isabella successfully forgot the speech she had prepared so carefully. I'm glad to meet you, she said modestly. Let's skip the formalities. From this moment, let's imagine we're old friends. When old friends come to visit, they don't feel embarrassed, they feel at home. Isabella, let's make it like that tonight, okay? Gabriel's mom said. I won't interrogate you. Gabriel has told me a lot about you, that's more than enough. Your past doesn't interest me, and we'll talk about the future. Let's have a friendly dinner. I'd love to try this approach, Isabella answered. She felt the tension begin to fade. That's wonderful. Since we're all family here, Isabella, help me with the duck. I just can't get it onto the plate, Dolores suddenly said. The rest of the evening was filled with a relaxed atmosphere. Isabella felt like she was home, surrounded by the closest people. The dinner was amazing, simple yet refined at the same time. But the cake that Gabriel's mom made was something Isabella would remember for the rest of her life. She genuinely praised the culinary masterpiece, but during her speech, she felt something hard under the spoon. Everyone was looking at her. Isabella was confused and embarrassed to point out the flaw in the cake in front of everyone. She lowered her eyes and saw the ring in her plate. In shock, she even gasped. That's not fair. You were supposed to eat it. Dolores laughed. We were worried you'd hurt your teeth. Stunned, Isabella looked around. Gabriel was kneeling beside her. A second later, Dolores brought the cleaned ring. She handed it to the young man with a smile and quickly sat back down, watching the scene. Will you say yes? You promised me. Remember when I suggested we live together? You said you'd say yes to another proposal. I think I have a chance to hear it today. I really want to hear it. Will you marry me? Isabella was crying. She couldn't believe her eyes and ears. Everything happening around her seemed unreal. Yes, she said through her tears. To loud cheers of hooray. Gabriel placed the ring on her finger. Isabella stretched out her hand and couldn't take her eyes off the ring. She was trying to comprehend that she would soon be a wife. Gabriel's mom stood up from the table and brought 2 medallions, handing them to the couple. She said, "These are the medallions from your father and me. They are passed down from couple to couple. Of course, I took our photos out and put yours in. I know it's not fashionable to wear these kinds of jewelry anymore, but I ask you to keep them for our grandchildren. For us, they were a necessary attribute. We always carried them with us. They were our talismans. I hope they will protect you too." Isabella burst into tears again, and Gabriel's mom smiled as she placed the medallion around her neck and gave her a tight hug. "I'm so happy you're with us now. I can see my son is happy. I hope you'll keep this feeling, and in the future, you'll make it grow. You make a great pair." The wedding preparations began in full swing. Isabella tried her best to avoid overly expensive decorations. She wanted a quiet family celebration. "Maybe we can just do the registry and go somewhere far away? Why do we need this feast? We can even have a separate celebration for the guests. If someone wants a big celebration, let them have it, and we'll quietly leave," she said. "Well, first of all, Mom wants to dance with her son at the wedding. Second of all, this will be the only wedding we have, and we have to go through with it. A wedding without the bride and groom doesn't seem like a good idea to me. There will be so many jealous people, I'm sure. Every second girl will be drowning in envy, looking at me, and then all the photos will leak online, and everyone will be staring at me there too," Isabella complained. "Don't pay attention to it. The wedding will pass, everyone will get used to it, and they'll finally understand that I'm yours forever," Gabriel said, hugging his bride. 2 months before the wedding, Gabriel received a letter in the mail, written in large letters that it was not spam and that for his own good, he should check the attached files. The letter claimed that Gabriel was being led astray. The sender insisted that Gabriel look at the photos and draw the appropriate conclusions. In their opinion, this was supposed to change Gabriel's life. After carefully reading the letter, Gabriel opened the photos. They showed Isabella with the driver he had fired after the accident. He couldn't believe his eyes. In the photo, the girl was laughing, holding the driver's arm, and in the last photo, they were walking together, embracing. The photos were recent, and he recognized the coat they had bought together just recently. It was all staged, the entire scenario was planned in advance. Gabriel realized he had walked straight into a trap. What he couldn't understand was how he had failed to sense any deception. He had always calculated everything in advance, always prepared for the worst, but this time, his vigilance hadn't worked. A few hours later, he called security and requested complete information on his former employee up until today, specifying that it was urgent and confidential. 3 hours later, the information was on his desk. The young man and Isabella had lived in the same village their entire lives. Their parents were close friends, and they themselves were inseparable. They had moved to the city together, both studied, worked part-time, and lived together in a shared apartment. After finishing their studies, the young man started working for Gabriel. He began as a courier, then drove employees home, and eventually became his personal driver, a position he held until that evening. The picture in Gabriel's mind was clear. They had used him. First, the driver had observed him, studied him, learned his habits, found out what was important to him, and figured out how to communicate with him, trying to find his weaknesses. Then, he passed all this information to Isabella. They carefully prepared a plan and executed it. Gabriel's heart was breaking into pieces. This was the first betrayal in his life. It was the first time he had fully trusted someone and hadn't calculated everything in advance. The first and last time, Gabriel swore to himself. Security provided the address and location where Isabella's former young man lived. He spent every evening in the same bar. Once a week, Isabella would go to that bar. They would spend no more than 5 minutes together. Gabriel sat at the bar, facing the hall, with a glass display in front of him, which reflected the entire room. He waited. 30 minutes later, Isabella entered. She immediately walked to the table, and Gabriel realized this was the usual meeting spot. She sat down, drank some water, took something out of her bag, and handed it to the man. He laughed and said something to her. They sat for a few more minutes, and Isabella, kissing him on the cheek, got ready to leave. Gabriel turned to face the hall. Standing up and putting on her coat, Isabella quickly glanced around. Their eyes met. The girl turned pale and slowly sat back down. Gabriel smiled and simply left the establishment. That night, he drove through the city, following the same routes they had taken the first evening with Isabella. He replayed that moment in time over and over, trying to understand where he had gone wrong and why he was going through all of this. Then he dialed the number and quietly said, "Mom, I'll stay home tonight." "I'm waiting for you." His mom didn't ask any questions, but Gabriel knew the place he was going was the most familiar, where even the walls heal. Dolores greeted him outside, closed the gates behind him, silently patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Come on, dinner's ready. Let's go, my dear, we've been waiting for you. The bed is made." When Gabriel entered, his mom had already set the table. "Go wash your hands, sit down to eat, and then lie down to sleep. Sleep heals." Gabriel looked at his mother with gratitude. Here it was, home and family. In this place, you were always accepted, warmed, fed, and sincerely supported, even without long heart-to-heart talks. In those moments, you still felt the support, and that was more important than anything. In the morning, Dolores was preparing breakfast, while his mother sat on the couch knitting. When Gabriel came down the stairs, both greeted him with warmth. "Good morning, are you having breakfast?" his mother asked. "Why not?" Gabriel answered. "Even though I had a late dinner, I'm still hungry." "That's right, son. I need to tell you honestly, Isabella called last night. She couldn't calm down, was crying, saying she had called all the hospitals. She asked if you had come by. I had to tell her you were fine. She begged me to give you the phone, but I said you were resting. I feel sorry for her, Gabriel. I don't know what happened between you two, but think it through. Although, as a mother, I will stand by you no matter what." "Thanks," Gabriel mumbled. "I don't know what happened between you two. If it's uncomfortable, you don't have to talk about it. But I'm afraid the last conversation between you isn't something you can avoid, no matter what." Gabriel looked at his mother. He could see she was worried about him. Then, gathering his courage, he told her the whole story. "I'm sorry, so sorry. But maybe there's an explanation." "Mom, what explanation?" "It's all painfully obvious. It hurts and bothers me, but I have to admit my mistakes. You taught me that, right?" "True. But to really understand the situation, we need to look at it from all sides. I'll think about it. But for now, I have to go to work. I'm already late. I'll be back this evening." He kissed his mother and headed for the door. "If you don't come back, I'll understand. But know this, you'll always be welcome here." Gabriel arrived at the office and told the secretary not to connect him with anyone and not to let anyone in. Isabella called all morning, but the secretary showed unprecedented resilience and didn't connect her to Gabriel. After lunch, he went to a meeting and didn't return to the office. That evening, after driving around the city, he remembered his mother's words. Gathering his strength, Gabriel turned the car around and drove home. Isabella was sitting in the kitchen, surrounded by complete darkness and silence. When she saw him, she stood up and looked at him with concern. "Will you let me explain?" she said. "You can say whatever you want. But, to my great regret, I will never be able to trust you again," he said coldly. "Everything that happened was real. My feelings are sincere. I love you so much, and I regret that things turned out this way. I couldn't tell you earlier. I'm sorry. I won't forgive you. I'll never forgive you. So, I think you've already figured it out. You'd better leave. Yesterday, I crossed you out of my life. I can't live without you. You can. I'm just a project. Sometimes projects fail, but we should never despair. There will always be other opportunities." Find yourself a new victim, calculate everything, try again, you'll succeed, Gabriel said bitterly, smiling. Because you're talented, you played me brilliantly. I understand it's painful, you almost made it to the finish line. But let this be your bitter experience, and you will perfect your skills. It's not quite what you think. We really know Samuel, but I didn't set up the accident. Gabriel couldn't listen to it anymore. He said quietly and calmly, You shouldn't be here tomorrow. I'll return in the evening, the apartment should be empty. If not, I'll have to involve security. Also, please stop calling and texting. I hope you've studied me during our time together. If you have, you know I don't change my decisions and I don't associate with traitors. I don't want to create problems for you, so let's part quietly and peacefully. This is our last meeting. Gabriel turned around and left. His heart was shattered, his feelings trampled, and his trust in people lost forever. His mother came to him, hugged him tightly, and kissed him on the forehead, just like when he was a child. The next day, Gabriel returned to the empty apartment. On the kitchen table, there was a note, I'll never change my phone number and will always be waiting for your call. I was faithful to you. I love you. Gabriel called the real estate agent and asked to list the apartment for sale at a reduced price. Gathering his belongings, Gabriel left this place for good. Mom, can I stay with you, if you don't mind? This is your home, you know, I'm only happy to have you. I don't even understand why you built such a castle for me alone. You won't believe it, but occasionally, Dolores and I manage to lose each other here. The grandchildren should have been here, many grandkids, Gabriel replied. My dear, don't be so sad. The grandchildren will be here, I have no doubt, so that's not the problem you should be solving. You need to get through this moment, life will put everything in place, and for now, just endure. Well, how? Now I don't trust anyone. Then don't trust for now. Time will pass, and someone will melt your heart. In any case, you just have to wait. I almost married that person. You were happy all this time, so it's not all that bad. You're grieving now because that happiness won't continue, because it wasn't real happiness. But look at it from another angle, obviously, the happiness was real. But you had to gain experience. Right now, your energy should be focused on fighting through this state. Time heals, everything will pass, and we'll look back on it with a smile. I hope so, Gabriel said. And time did heal. He threw himself into his work, taking on any project, even the hopeless ones. During this period, he worked with extra zeal, and the excitement, everything seemed to go right. The company was growing rapidly, success followed him everywhere. Sometimes Gabriel thought, what if it hadn't been for this situation, would he have reached such heights? When he reflected on this, he usually came to a negative conclusion. No, this overwhelming success wouldn't have happened. But perhaps, he would have been happy. After Isabella left, women started flocking around Gabriel, one after another. They didn't care what kind of relationship they would have. It seemed like they were ready for any role. To Gabriel, they all looked the same. In this sea of women, he searched for a semblance of Isabella, but not a single one came even close to her image. Once, he even tried to move in with one of them, thinking the out of sight, out of mind principle might work. He suspected he made a mistake within a week, everything about her irritated him. One day, as he was walking down the hallway, he overheard his chosen one talking on the phone. Yeah, now I have a different social status. Not everyone can catch such a guy. Of course, I don't cook, I order from a restaurant and tell him I made everything myself. I wouldn't want to ruin my manicure. Gabriel couldn't help himself, he burst out laughing. That evening, he ended up at his mother's place, laughing as he told her what had happened. His mother smiled and shook her head. From that moment, Gabriel decided to act only when he was sure. He was waiting for the same emotions and feelings he had once felt, because that was when he understood clearly what he was doing, how he saw his future, and most importantly, he felt he wanted children with that woman. It seemed that in his city, he had completed all the projects he could. It was time to expand to other cities. After signing several contracts, Gabriel chose this particular city for a personal visit. The explanation was simple: all his other projects were running smoothly, but here, there were problems upon problems. These kinds of projects hooked Gabriel. He liked solving difficulties. It helped him escape reality and focus on something else. And so, he found himself here, at this hotel, once again overwhelmed by emotions and with no clear future ahead. That evening, the security service called. They sent him a detailed report on Isabella and briefly outlined the situation. The employee mentioned that he would send the full version via email. "Senor Rodriguez, there's more. There's something strange going on at the company. It seems money is leaking from all the accounts. The amounts are significant, but in the overall flow, they go unnoticed. However, the money is leaking from all the accounts. Yes, little by little, but from all of them evenly." "How long has this been going on?" Gabriel asked. "We're trying to figure it out, but it's definitely been happening for several months." "Where's the information from?" Gabriel was furious. "Gloria Fernandez told us." "Remember your wife's assistant?" "Sorry," the employee hastily added. "Yes, of course, I remember. Most likely, this information can be trusted." "How long will the investigation take?" "It's hard to say. We plan to wrap it up within a week. The task is made easier by the fact that the circle of people who have access to all branches is not that big. We'll work through it. Keep working. Keep me updated," Gabriel said calmly, though emotions were raging inside him. There was a knock at the door. When Gabriel opened it, Andres was standing in the doorway. "Senor Rodriguez, I don't even know how to tell you," the young man hesitated. "Just say it. Today is a day of bad news, so it can't get any worse. Don't think I've been spying on you. This happened by accident. Last night, I went out, met a girl, and she showed me around the city. I came back around dawn." "All right, continue, and stop beating around the bush. Just say it like it is." "Well, around dawn, I saw a girl leaving your room. I couldn't remember where I had seen her before. She got into a car. I might not have paid attention, but she kept looking around. It struck me as suspicious. You know, we have a complicated project here, and I thought maybe the locals were trying to throw us off. The girl was probably from here, so I thought, what if she's our enemy?" "I hear you. You're absolutely right to be concerned. But I'm glad you have everything under control. Keep it up." After Andres left, Gabriel opened the file sent by the security service. He started reading the information. It was Isabella's biography. The girl was born and raised in the same place, and she lived with her parents until they tragically died when she was 16. After that, her relatives kicked her out of the house, sold the property, and, 2 years later, sold the house too. They gave her a small sum of money. The girl was left with nothing. Around the same time, a young man named Samuel arrived in the city. He came from a troubled family but led a healthy lifestyle, studied, and did sports. Throughout his teenage years, he tried to court Isabella, but she didn't reciprocate. She treated him like a brother, pitied him, and helped him as much as she could. It was Isabella who helped him leave the village, arranged for his studies, and paid for a room in a shared apartment. Later, Samuel, looking for a side job, became a courier for Gabriel's company. He worked diligently, was honest, and precise. During his time working there, there were no complaints. Based on all this, he was promoted to driver. He continued working well in that position, often doing overtime and getting along with everyone. The next promotion came a year later when he became Gabriel's personal driver. Throughout all this time, he lived with Isabella in a shared apartment in adjacent rooms. Surveys from close friends and neighbors show that there was no romantic relationship between the young people, but they communicated warmly both before and after meeting Gabriel. Correspondence revealed that Isabella was genuinely upset after Samuel's dismissal. She made efforts to help him find work and assisted him financially. Recently, the young people had been seeing each other very rarely. Samuel had found a job, and Isabella was temporarily unemployed until the very last moment. For several months, Samuel had been transferring small amounts of money to Isabella's bank account. The report ended there. Gabriel leaned back in his chair, utterly confused. Even his conversation with Andres had thrown him off balance. There was a knock on the door. It was that melodic knock that Isabella always used when entering the room. Gabriel hesitated before approaching the door. He had no idea how to act. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door. Isabella rushed to him, throwing her arms around his neck and began kissing him. "I've missed you so much. You know, every time I come to the door, I'm afraid it will be empty. I'm so scared that one day I'll walk into an empty room, and I know it's inevitable." "We agreed not to talk about sad things," Gabriel said. "We agreed, but we also agreed not to think about them. And somehow, it seems to me that you're breaking that rule." "No, where did you get that?" "I'm trying to follow all the rules. After all, I'm a master at making contracts," he tried to joke. "Don't try to fool me. Words are useless here, I can feel it. Something has happened, you're troubled. Do you want me to leave and come back later?" Gabriel stayed silent. He was confused. He wanted to remain in this blissful happiness for a little longer, but at the same time, he was torn by everything that was going on around him. It was all an illusion of happiness. "Yes, you're right, there are some problems. And you're my problem, just as I am yours." "You're wrong. I'm seeing everything differently now. At that time, I was after status, understanding all the rights, I chased after it for some reason. But now, the only thing that matters is looking into your eyes for as long as I can, having the chance to touch you. And when you leave, of course, I'll cry, but later, I'll savor every moment spent with you. That will give me energy, fill me with positive emotions, and warm my soul at night." Gabriel knew everything would be different for him. These memories would slowly destroy him, kill his desire to live, torture him at night, and turn his life into hell. He hugged Isabella tightly, pulling her close. "Where did you go yesterday? It was getting close to dawn, and employees could see me leaving your room. You're leaving, and I still have to work here. By the way, I'm hoping for a promotion," she added with a smile. "That's why I left earlier, before the shift change." "Where did you go after me?" Isabella looked at him carefully. She felt something was wrong. "I met someone, then went home." "Please, don't ask who I met." "Why all the secrets? You're meeting someone at dawn?" "Well, there are a lot of factors here that are clearly not in your favor." "Is it because of my bad reputation?" Isabella replied with a bitter smile. "You're wrong to doubt me. You're ruining our 3 days for nothing." Only 1 day left," Gabriel said mercilessly. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She approached him and rested her forehead against his chest. Gabriel could feel her crying. "Tell me everything, I beg you. Tell me everything. I'm ready to hear even the most unpleasant things. I'm ready to try to believe you. I've waited so long to explain everything to you. I've been preparing my speech the whole time. Do you know how many letters I wrote? I rewrote them almost every evening. Sometimes I wrote about myself, sometimes I asked about you, but in every letter, I described in detail what happened," Isabella said through her tears. "Why didn't you send any of those letters?" "I did. At first, I sent them regularly, but they came back. I didn't give up. I wrote more and more, until one day I got a response. It said that there was no such recipient at the address anymore. I was asked to confirm if I had the correct address." Gabriel realized that Isabella had been sending letters to their old apartment, which he had sold almost immediately. All the messengers, all social networks, everything was blocked. I had no way of writing. So I turned to the secretary. She was rude to me, didn't ask any questions, just hung up the phone. That's when I called Gloria. She was the one who explained to me that this was the management's request. It was forbidden to keep conversations with me, forbidden to give any addresses or phone numbers. They crossed me out of your life. They did it without hesitation and against my will. I'm sorry, Gabriel whispered. I kept talking to Gloria. She was the only thread that connected me to you. Of course, I didn't ask her for your contacts. I didn't want to put her in that position, but she, sensing all my pain, kept telling me about you. Sometimes, when she could, she sent me your photos. Why did you need that? Didn't you want to build your own life? After you, I had no life. You know, it's funny, neither before you nor after. You kept reopening the wound? Is that how it is? You saw our past relationship as a tragedy. I saw it as the best story of my life. Gabriel looked at Isabella. The small, fragile girl sat across from him, crying. He had lost control of the situation again, didn't know how to proceed, but felt that he wanted to hear Isabella, understand her, and forgive her. Samuel and I came to this city completely alone, unwanted by anyone. In fact, we were like two orphans, you know, two lost souls, and people here are different, cruel, calculating. They didn't accept us. The city rejected us. We struggled to get into school. The work situation was terrible. We stuck together, helped each other, supported each other. We had no one else. Then Samuel got hired by you. That was a breakthrough. He could never have dreamed of such a job. Then came the promotion, and shortly after that, another. He was on cloud 9. I celebrated with him. First, we started to have enough money, and second, there were prospects. The only thing that saddened Samuel was that I couldn't seem to get my life on track. And then he came up with this plan. I swear to you, I knew nothing about it. He knew exactly what time I was coming back, what route I was taking. Then he changed your route, saying the street was closed due to an accident. He thought of everything down to the smallest detail, but the rest of the story you already know. I found out about this plan much later, after we were already in a relationship and even living together by then. I came to him, and he was out of work and money. That's when I started helping. Once a month, we met. I had just found a job and gave him some money. I wanted to help him get back on his feet. You see, he failed because of me. He wanted to make my life better. Yes, he was wrong, but Samuel is like family to me. Gabriel looked at her without blinking. He had nearly ruined their lives because of some foolishness. A simple conversation could have solved everything. Why didn't you tell me right away? You didn't listen to me. You weren't ready for a conversation. Remember, you just kicked me out. But why didn't you say anything when we were together? It's part of your life, and you kept it hidden. I don't have an answer to that. I've thought about it many times. I don't understand why I kept this from you. I was ashamed to talk about it. Do you know how many times I scolded myself? If you had known, our lives would have been different now. According to the plan, we would already have a child. Yes, but it's done now, he smiled bitterly. Agreed. Personally, my life is ruined. I think such an opportunity only comes once in a lifetime. I don't think I can experience something like that again. You have no idea how much I hated you. Then I hated myself, and then my hatred spread to everyone around me. I completely stopped trusting people. After a while, I stopped seeing the good in people. When you were around, you taught me kindness, and the whole world seemed different. When you left, everything became black and white. I was a fool. I should have listened to you. I'm glad we at least talk now. And here? How did you end up here? Gloria said she couldn't watch this anymore. We weren't allowed to give out the phone, so she came up with this scheme. She checked which hotel they booked, and I thought I'd get a job here. I randomly went in, thinking, what if? And now here I am. And who picked you up at night? I wouldn't want to talk about that right now. Actually, we'll definitely discuss it later. We already postponed a conversation once, didn't turn out well. That was another one of Gloria's plans. She noticed that money was disappearing from the accounts again, couldn't figure out who, so she spread the rumor that I was dreaming of revenge for my ruined career. Why? Who would even believe that? The man asked, surprised. Well, as the result shows, if a person is drunk with the desire for revenge, they're ready to believe any nonsense. The worst part is that there were many who believed. That's my fault. Interesting. After a while, someone approached me. I didn't know him, but he knew everything about me. I had to improvise. I told him I was getting a job at the hotel to get close to you, gather the necessary information, and then destroy you and your company. Wow. Maybe that's your plan. Funny. When you arrived in the city, this person followed right after. I had to meet with him occasionally, tell him different things, but the main task wasn't that. Gloria needed me to get to his boss, someone who works directly in the company. But he won't give him up. And he won't. He's not stupid. I mean, the main player. Everything you're saying, I already know. The security service is already working on this. But if you'll allow me, I'll share the information about this mysterious person. I think they'll easily solve the puzzle. Look at how you've trained Gloria. No one in the company, except for her, suspected anything. It's time to prepare for a promotion. Not only is she fighting for financial success, but she also manages to shape our personal lives. This should be not just a promotion, but a promotion with a medal. I agree, Gloria is a true hero. She definitely surpassed me. I've never met anyone with so much kindness and responsiveness in one person. Over this time, she's become more than a friend to me. And she really helped Samuel. He was all alone. Yes, he was struggling with work, but loneliness is worse than poverty. Gloria helped him during that time, and now they're together, helping each other. Seems like a happy ending. Gabriel smiled. He contacted his security service, passed on all the data regarding the car to the person, then turned to Isabella and said, "I'm free now. Let's go." "Where?" the girl asked, surprised. "Where else?" "To pack your things. We're going home. Although, we don't have a home yet. I sold the apartment right after you left, but I think we'll manage. For now, we'll stay with my mom. She'll be very happy." Isabella joyfully packed her suitcase. She hadn't even unpacked half of it yet. Rolling out the last suitcase, she looked at Gabriel. It was worth it after all. Despite all the pain of the separation, today's happiness made it worth it. He smiled, hugged the girl, grabbed the suitcases, and they headed for the car. Isabella was overwhelmed with happiness. When they entered the city, she knew they were here to stay. She knew that with Gabriel, they would never part again. Dolores ran towards them at full speed. She was happy for Gabriel as if he were her own child. She warmly hugged Isabella and kissed her. "Well done. Well done for coming back. Now we'll finally live. Finally, everyone will be happy." Gabriel's mother stood on the porch, smiling, watching them. She warmly hugged the girl when she approached. "I knew this would happen. I felt it, I believed in you, and I've been waiting for you all this time." At that moment, Isabella realized she had come home. They entered the house. The table was already set with a festive dish. Gloria and Samuel were sitting at the table. The girls screamed and rushed to hug each other. Samuel approached Gabriel and extended his hand. "Forgive me. It turned out monstrous," he said. "I have nothing to forgive you for. You acted like a real man. You tried to secure your friend's fate. Maybe the method was wrong, but the intent was noble. I can only thank you. If it weren't for you, Isabella and I wouldn't have met. And if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have separated," Samuel said. "No, old friend, I should have listened to her." "This is my fault," Gabriel said. The next day, Gabriel went to work. Everything was quiet around him. The security service was at work. Gabriel walked into his office, asked the secretary for a cup of coffee, and waited. "Senor Rodriguez, we've checked everything, everyone." Go on, Gabriel said calmly. The thing is, there can be no mistake. The employee lowered his eyes to the floor. This is your right hand. For the last 6 months, maybe even longer, but especially in the last 6 months, he's been gradually ruining the branches. That was his goal. At some point, there would be too little money in the accounts to meet obligations. Then contracts would have to be terminated, and the penalties would be enormous, and you wouldn't be able to cover them. Is the information verified? Gabriel asked. Yes, we've checked everything. He tried to withdraw money carefully, creating one-day companies and often changing them. Anything else? Gabriel felt the young man was holding back something. Yes, there's one detail. I'm not sure if it's relevant to the case, but this person is currently living with your former manager. Remember her? The one your wife fired? The last words your wife stayed with Gabriel the most. He smiled warmly, thinking of Isabella. I understand. Thank you for the prompt work. I'll take it from here. But perhaps it's better to file a police report. It looks like he's already fled the country. We've managed to trace some transfers, but a huge part of the money is gone. If it's within the country, we have a good chance of getting it back. But for that, we'll need a report. This woman hasn't left the country, at least not yet. She'll give witness testimony. I would insist on this option. You're right, most likely we'll have to proceed this way. Each person chooses their own path. So, should I call the police? The security officer asked. Yes, of course, call them. After filing the report and all the necessary procedures, the former manager was arrested as an accomplice. She was escorted past Gabriel. The woman looked at him from under her brow, showing no remorse. Damn you, fat rich people who don't want to share with anyone. I hate all of you. She hissed. Gabriel looked at her with pity. I knew back then she wouldn't calm down. That look. I still get goosebumps. So much anger, Isabella said. Well, everyone gets what they deserve, Gabriel said. It's a pity not everyone does, Isabella replied, referring to Gabriel's right hand. Life is a boomerang, everything comes back, he said and hugged Isabella. New Year's Eve was approaching. Gabriel and Isabella weren't in a hurry to find a new place to live. They were staying with his mom, waiting for their first baby. By 11 p.m., the guests arrived, including Gloria and Samuel. They were expecting their first child in early January. Isabella gently patted her friend's belly. Oh, my godchild, we'll meet soon. Don't torment your mom too much, she said. The house was filled with joyful noise. Someone set off a popper, someone sang karaoke. It was a carefree celebration. As the clock struck midnight, everyone tried to make a wish. Happiness filled the air. After the congratulations and loud cheers, Gabriel knelt in front of Isabella, took out the ring she had left on the note. I ask you one last time, will you marry me? I'm ready to just sign and run away somewhere far. Isabella smiled and nodded. Everyone around them cheered and clapped, shouting, congratulations.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.